Trump economic advisor, Peter Navarro, probably thought that he was going on Ari Melber. And, Ari Melber comes across as kind of soft and he's mellow, etc. But the dude is pretty smart. He's hip and he's smart. And I think Peter Navarro probably learned that lesson, because I tell you what, for all practical purposes, for those who have any modicum of understanding what's going on, I think he made mincemeat out of Peter Navarro. I took some clips out of a very extensive interview that he gave him with regards to the insurrection, with regards to the coup that they attempted to effect on the American citizenry, the coup that they attempted, these traitors. And I think he let him have it. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
The question is, What was the plan itself and who was in on it?
The plan was simply this. We had over 100 congressmen and senators on Capitol Hill ready to implement the sweep. The sweep was simply that. We were going to challenge the results of the election in the 6 battleground states. We believed that if the votes were sent back to those battleground states and looked at again, that there would be enough concern amongst the legislatures that most or all of those states would decertify the election. That would throw the election to the House of Representatives. And at 1 p.m., Ted Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz, and Gosar, a representative, started the Green Bay sweep beautifully, challenging the results of Arizona.
You just described this plan as a way to take an election where the outcome was established by independent secretaries of state, by the voters of those states, and legal remedies have been exhausted with the Supreme Court never even taking, let alone siding with, any of the claims that you just referred to. So legally, they went nowhere. You will use the incumbent losing party's power, that was the Republican Party that was losing power, to overtake and reverse that outcome. Do you realize you are describing a coup?
No, I totally reject many of your premises there. First of all, the election was still in doubt and would be until it was certified. Second, the idea that secretaries of state, particularly in Michigan and Pennsylvania, were like innocent parties, they were put in power by George Soros for the express purpose of shifting the playing field to the Democrats. We were following the Constitution and rules of the Senate to simply get a recount of what the votes were.
But when you describe a system where, after all of the legal remedies are exhausted, the people who lost just make noise and then say that they won and seize power, don't you understand that if that actually were the system, it would be dumb and dangerous? If the people who lost could just get up there and say, well, we want to do our own count, not the state law recount, not what the Supreme Court provides for, but just people in the Trump administration decide, well, we disagree. Don't you understand why people see your, whatever you want to call it, you don't want to call it a coup, your thing where when you lose, you stay in power, they see that as really dangerous?
Your presumption is the remedies were exhausted. My presumption is the remedies weren't exhausted at all.
Now, let's read from your book with regard to your contention about the vice president. You say, quote, Pence refused to take my repeated phone calls about election irregularities despite a direct request from President Trump to do so. What was your vision, that you would get Pence to do that which Trump couldn't get him to do?
No, my only reason to talk to Vice President Mike Pence was to explain to him, as I documented in my 3-volume report, that in all likelihood there was significant election fraud and irregularities across the 6 battleground states.
This may be relevant, sir, in future elections, which is, sure. Don't you think somebody would have thought of this if the incumbent administration, through the president or the vice president, could just cancel the election outcome because he goes down to the Senate? Well, then a lot of people would try to stay in power. We have an entire system designed to thwart people like you, to stop people like you who think that you can anoint yourself the reviewers of the voters, of the American people, of what they lawfully did, that you trump the Supreme Court, no pun intended. People like you are what the Constitution are designed to stop. And it worked, and it did stop you. Well, Peter, again, I can't fact check everything in real time and also do the interview. But some of what you said is false.
Some of what you said is false. A lot of what you said is false. Let's get this straight here. it is important to understand that that Republicans have not won the popular vote since the 90s, as I recall. If I recall correctly, I think actually, they've won it once since the popular vote, once since the 90s. And I think that was the second coming of President Bush número dos. But they don't win elections because their policies suck. It's the undemocratic nature of the United States of America that has given the Republicans half of the time governing capabilities. But worse, we have allowed a party who has never or who rarely garners the popular vote the ability to set the Supreme Court for decades to come. We have garnered them the ability to set policy that hurts most of the people against their own will. And here, they are doing the same thing. The one question I wish Ari would have said, yes, he talked about them losing the election, but Donald Trump didn't only lose the election in 2020. He lost the election by a landslide, 7 million votes, more so than Hillary Clinton. And the nature of the undemocracy of this country shows that in as much as he won the election by more than twice the amount that Hillary Clinton won her election against Donald Trump by, 43,000 votes in the right states would have still given Trump a win, in as much as there was over 7 million vote advantage for Mr. Biden, for President Biden. If that is not how can we go around the world and talk about democracy? How can we ever talk about one person, one vote? How can we ever talk about this when we have what occurred with Donald Trump and the gall that these people have, in as much as they're losing by millions of votes, to fight about we won. The people don't want you. The people didn't elect you. You are putting yourself or trying to get into power, wrong or strong. You are fascist, and that is all there is to it. Americans need to wake up. We need to make a huge vote. We need to make sure that we have the court set appropriately. We need to destroy the Electoral College, and we need to simply change the rules of the Senate. And I'm not talking about canning the filibuster. I mean a constitutional amendment that a state that has 750,000 people cannot be the same, have the same amount of power in a Senate as a California that has orders of magnitude more in people than that state. This is not a democracy. Let's not go around the world telling people that when these are the things that can happen in the United States of America. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.